Hello sa inyong lahat, at kung bago kayo dito, welcome sa podcast, Conversations on Philippine History, Politics, and Society. We are your hosts. I'm Joselito Ebro.
I am Vec Alporja.
And I am Lee Candelaria. Nagpapatuloy tayo sa ating ongoing series na ang title ay Bagay-Bagay Objects of Philippine Life. At very interesting, yung mga napag-usapan natin for the past 20 episodes almost. But today, special yung pag-uusapan nating ulit na object kasi mula naman ito sa Northern Philippines.
Yes, at yan nga ay ang bulol. Mahirap sabihin yung way nila ng pronunciation bilang Tagalog ako, pero bulol yung way niya na
Bulol.
ganun siya sabihin. So interesting tong object na to kasi it once commanded such spiritual power, lalo na sa mga indigenous peoples ng Cordillera. So families would offer the blood of sacrificed animals, for example, like chicken or pigs, to awaken yung bulol. At iconic piece of Filipino culture siya ngayon. So kumbaga, hindi na lang siya isang spiritual article. Halimbawa, nung 2022, yung isang bulol ay naibenta sa Christie's auction, yung sikat na auction website sa Paris nagkakahalaga ng 630,000 euros. So tumataginting na 36 million pesos.
Wow.
Pero barya lang yan, 36 million, no? Kung ikukumpara sa mga nakurakot na billions of pesos. Posible pang trillions of pesos.
Correct.
Anyway, itong bulol ay mula sa Ifugao. At kung di man familiar ang iba sa ating mga listeners, ito ay mga carved wooden figures. At for sure, makikita ito sa mga museums at maging sa mga souvenir shops. But here's the thing, yung mga Ifugao people, or para sa kanila, hindi ito decorative art piece lang. No? They are living guardians, vessels for ancestral spirits that protect the rice harvests.
And that disconnect between what the bulol means in Ifugao granary versus what it becomes in a Parisian auction house tells us so much about colonialism, cultural appropriation, and the struggle for indigenous sovereignty.
Yes, and self-determination. So ngayon, we'll trace bulol from its sacred origins in the Cordillera Highlands through centuries of colonial encounters to its complicated status as both a spiritual guardian and a global art commodity. So simulan na natin.
To understand the bulol, we need to start with the Ifugao people themselves, no? The name comes from Ipugo, Ifugao word yon, meaning from the hill or earthman. They call themselves mortals of the earth world or Pugao, distinguishing themselves from the deities and spirits in their universe.
Yeah, and what a universe it is, no? Very interesting. Naalala ko mga undergraduate cultural history lessons natin, about this. The Ifugao cosmos has 5 distinct regions. Una yung Kabunyan or yung sky world, Dalom, the underworld, Pugao, the earth world, kung saan nakatira yung mga human beings like us, no? Daya, the upstream region, and Lagud, the downstream region. And this geography maps both physical and spiritual space. So makikita natin talaga yung yung different layers at yung pagsasama-sama nito.
Yes, at yung Ifugao pantheon, kumbaga, sobrang daming deities niyan at naka-organize ito into like 35 different categories. So, di ba? Sobrang complex nung spiritual world nila. So, may mga creator gods, celestial bodies, tapos meron din, syempre, common sa animist spirituality, nature spirits, and even ancestor worship, na anito, kung tawagin.
At itong mga anito, yung mga spirits of deceased ancestors, ito yung nag-i-inhabit sa mga bulol figures. But the tradition has specific divine origin story, no? So, particular yung mga Ifugao dito. And there's this myth about a deity named Humidhid who lived in Daya, or the upstream region.
Yes, at ito ngang si Humidhid, nakarinig daw siya na isang puno ng nara na umiiyak at nagmamakaawa na ukitin siya para gawin siyang bulol. So what Humidhid did was he carved several figures from the tree and brought them to his house. But these newly created bulol became unruly and they demanded too much food and wine.
Oh, di ba? Parang yung mga bisita na di ba, makikain na nga lang kumakadiman. Charot lang. Pero interesting yung mga ganito, no? Kasi not very different, for example, and this is gonna be a weird analogy, pero halimbawa yung paganism ng mga ancient Greek or kahit na Roman, yung whimsy yung mga Diyos, yung deity, di ba?
Yes.
May mga whimsical stuff sila.
Playful, kumbaga. So, Humidhid threw them into the river and they floated downstream to Lagud. Years later, his daughter, Bugan, found one in the river while searching for her lost lime container. They fell in love, got married, and when their child visited the mortal world, Humidhid instructed them to carve bulul from Nara trees for protection.
Yeah, and ito yung crucial na part sa story, no? When the grandchild faced the same problem of the bulul's insatiable appetite kasi nga nagdedemand ng food and wine, no? Humidhid provided the solution. The bulul must be housed in a separate structure. And that structure became the alang or the rice granary.
Yes, ang ganda ng kwentong to, ang interesting, no? Parang saglit pa lang ang dami mo nang makikitang cultural aspect ng mga Ifugao. Halimbawa yung isang example dito na hinahanap ni Bugan yung kanyang lime container. Yun yung ginagamit sa pagnganganga.
Nganga.
So ang tawag nila ay moma sa Northern Luzon. Which is, a widespread practice. Okay, so yung isa pang origin myth. Ito naman tungkol kay Namtogan, an ancient god with a physical disability who came to the village of Ahin. I'm not sure if I said it right. So the villagers treated him kindly, and so he blessed their fields with extraordinary abundance. Pero when they forgot to honor him, consumed by their prosperity, he cursed them with plagues and pestilence.
And also, the villagers later found him in a balete tree. And though he refused to return, he taught them to carve his image from wood and perform specific rituals each year to ensure their harvest. And this established the fundamental principle of reciprocity. No? So the earth's bounty comes from the spirits contingent upon the faithful ritual obligations. So may balance, kumbaga.
So yeah, yan yung stories, no, of how the bulol came to be, or kumbaga ito yung mga myths surrounding the bulol, no. But the actual creation of a bulol is also an incredible fusion of artistry and ritual. Magsisimula yung proseso sa paghahanap ng tamang wood. Traditionally, ito ay nara or ipil. The nara tree itself, of course, embodies the qualities of wealth, health, happiness, and prosperity. Kaya nga, di ba, nara yung ating pambansang puno. Kasi it's a strong kind of wood. It's a hardwood.
Yeah, so kung titingnan yung figure ng bulol, mukhang simple siya, no? Mukha siyang simpleng sculpture. Pero traditionally, the carving takes several weeks kapag gagamitan yung traditional hand tools. So, halimbawa, yung patu, wooden mallet, kumbaga. Tapos yung simpa, a flat blade chisel for rough shaping. Tapos meron pang lukhong with its crescent-shaped blade para naman dun sa mga curves, sa mga kurba ng figure. The chipia for concave forms, uchip, small knife for smoothing, and korikor, a thin pointed tool para naman sa mga fine details.
At yung goal sa paggawa nito ay hindi realism, no? But more on abstraction. So according to Alfredo Evangelista from the National Museum, Ifugao artists expressed their feelings rather than attempt realistic representation. So yung stylized form emphasize otherworldliness, creating an appropriate vessel for a potent ancestral spirit. So hindi lang siya for aesthetic.
Yeah, tsaka ang goal is not for it to look like a person. No? Abstraction talaga siya kasi nga papasukan siya ng espiritu. Talking about now the figures, no, and their stances, their postures, usually dalawa yung main na posture nila. One is seated with the arms crossed over upraised knees in this compact self-contained pose. Another is standing with knees slightly bent and hands resting on them, no. Pero kung pag-uusapan natin yung iba't iba pang forms, marami pa yan kasi may mga distinct na regional styles pa ng bulol.
Sa Hapaw Hongduan naman, sa may Western Ifugao, yung bulol, nakatayo siya with hands on kneecaps, often featuring a rectangular base shaped like a rice mortar. In Kambulu Batad, in the north, you get those finely carved seated figures with inlaid eyes and mouth made from shells or cowries.
Sa Central Ifugao naman, around Kiangan, Banawe at Hingyon, ang mga bulol nila doon ay may mga nakatayo at may mga nakaupo. Sometimes with more naturalistic or even European influenced facial features.
Galing, no? Iba-iba. But I think what transforms a carved piece of wood into a living deity is yung consecration ritual na ginagawa nila. After a carved figure, of course, is made, it is activated ritually, no? Kasi kapag yung figure ay hindi na-activate through ritual, isa lang itong tagtago, ang tawag nila, no? A human-like image with no power.
Okay, so yung ceremony na ginagawa dito, ang tawag nila ay alwen, bulol, or tunod. So, ang nagpa-perform nito, o naglilid nitong ceremony na to, ay yung mumbaki. So, yung mumbaki, sila yung spiritual leader, spiritual practitioner sa Ifugao, no? At siya din yung specialist pagdating sa mga ganitong klaseng rituals. So, they invoke the deities and ancestors, reciting the Humidhid origin myth to remind the spirit of its purpose. And the figure receives offerings of, rice cakes, yung mga usual, wine, baya, which it is made to like drink. Parang ipapainom sa kanya.
And ito na yung climactic part nito, when the bulul is anointed with blood. So a pig or a chicken is normally sacrificed, and its blood is poured over the figure or smeared into it by the Mumbaki's hands. So this bathing in the life force of a sacrificial animal invites the spirits to enter and inhabit the wooden vessel.
So kapag nakakita kayo ng bulol at sila ay dark, no? At sila ay, ito yung mga totoong bulol talaga na activate ritually. Yung dark encrusted patina that we see on these, especially mga antique bulol siguro, no? Yung mga kinuha na later on to display, hindi lang siya age eh. Bawat layer na yan, may darkened blood, may grease from the food offerings, malamang may soot from granary smoke. It shows, in a way, yung physical biography of the object's ritual life. Kasi dumaan siya sa lahat ng prosesong yun, no? And the patina is a visual evidence of every prayer that the bulol has heard, no? Every harvest it has guarded.
Yes. So, after ma-consecrate yung bulol after the ritual, usually ginagawa sila in pairs. So, a male and a female. Which I think is very interesting. At it embodies the Ifugao values of balance, harmony, fertility. Sa mga female na depiction ng bulol, sometimes nakakabit siya dun sa mortar, tapos yung male sa pestle. So, kinoconnect sila dun sa rice processing, yung traditional rice processing na pagbayo nung palay.
Pati yung placement nito ay interesting kasi during rituals or before the harvest, male figure always goes on the right and the female on the left. This prescribed arrangement reinforces the ordered, balanced cosmos of the Ifugao that they try to maintain.
The Ifugao's history with outside powers also fundamentally shaped yung tradition ng bulol, no? Unlike most of the Philippine lowlands, the Ifugao successfully resisted Spanish colonization for over 3 centuries. The rugged Cordillera terrain and their formidable warrior culture allowed them to maintain political and cultural autonomy.
Yes, pero yung resistance na to, hindi lang siya through isolating themselves. It wasn't just through passive isolation. Recent archaeological findings have completely changed our understanding of the rice terraces, for example. Kasi, di ba, simula dati pa, nung elementary tayo, ang turo sa atin ay they were like 2,000 years old. But evidence now shows that the most intensive terrace construction began around 1600 CE. So, around, around the beginning of Spanish occupation. At yun nga, nagko-coincide with Spanish arrival sa northern Philippines.
So it was mostly a colonial response, a strategic one to address yung mga pressures coming from the Spaniards, no? As these colonizers encroached on the lowlands, Ifugao retreated to the highlands and intensified their agricultural production, creating this self-sufficient society capable of withstanding external threats. Parang sa Peru.
Yeah, oo. So in a way, yun nga I think this is the research by Stephen Acabado na intensified yung building ng terraces as a response to the encroachment of the Spaniards, no. Napaakyat kasi lalo yung mga Ifugao. And throughout the Spanish period from 1565 to 1898, this bulul tradition that we talk about continued largely undisturbed in the highlands. Spanish missionaries made repeated attempts to penetrate the Cordilleras, but the Ifugao's geographic isolation and fierce independence kept their spiritual practices intact.
Yes, so during the American colonial period na nagsimula ng 1899, officially, di ba?
Yeah.
That brought the first major disruption sa indigenous life. American administrators, missionaries, American ethnographers and anthropologists became very fascinated with what they considered an exotic culture. So dito sa mga tinawag nilang non-Christian tribes, So itong mga bulol figures na to, parang naging trophy kumbaga kapag nakapunta sila dito sa mga indigenous communities na to.
At yung most prominent collector dito ay si H. Otley Beyer, no? Naalala niyo ba yung sa Waves of Migration? Siya ito, di ba?
Yeah.
He's an American anthropologist whose extensive collection formed the provenance for many bulul that later entered Western museums, even private collections, no? And in fact, yung nabanggit kanina ni Vec, the 36 million peso bulul sold at Christie's in 2022 traced its provenance back to Beyer's son. So, may yumaman.
So, yung luma, yung antique na talaga, no? Tama.
Alam mo, ang interesting pa sa akin dyan, somehow, no, ito talagang mountainous area of the Cordillera also served a critical role during the Second World War, nung Japanese occupation. Siyempre, it became the refuge of the guerrilla forces. But kahit sina Yamashita, no, yung Japanese forces realized that they can only defend themselves if they go to the mountains. So they went up north. And naka-assist din yung Ifugao's knowledge of the terrain, their warrior traditions noong World War II, no? And they provided a very important form of resistance against the Japanese noong World War II. So despite yung wartime disruptions which affected the agricultural cycles, nagpatuloy itong bulul tradition even after the war.
Yes, so post-war, dito talaga makita yung intensification and systematization ng pag-integrate ng mga Cordillera peoples, indigenous peoples into the national society, the nation state na binubuo after the total independence quote unquote from the Americans. So mas madaming roads, halimbawa infrastructure yung ginawa. Nag-establish ng mas maraming eskwelahan at ito rin yung period kung saan nagkaroon ng mas matinding pressure on traditional practices.
And during the martial law period, mas nag-intensify, no? So from 1972 to 1981, mas maraming infrastructure projects ang nag-open sa mga highlands, even to greater outside influence, no? The Chico River Dam project threatened to flood ancestral lands and rice terraces. sparking fierce resistance from Ifugao and other Cordillera peoples.
Yeah, and siguro just a bit of trivia lang then why Marcos is very particular about the North, no? Kasi it forms part of his narrative of heroism during the Second World War. Kasi alam naman natin, di ba, na sina Yamashita nga doon tumigil, doon nahuli sa Norte. So, in a way, Marcos is really giving special attention to this area kasi later on his family will say that it was Marcos who found the Yamashita gold. So kung nagtataka yung mga tao kung bakit may shrine si Yamashita or bakit may shrine sa Ifugao, no, for some reason, yes, that's where World War II ended officially, but also because after the war, Marcos was perhaps thinking he can use it to really develop his own war hero myth and aid yung kanilang pagnanakaw. No? Yan, trivia lang naman yan. Anyway, going back to this resistance to this Chico River Dam project, no, this resistance will help forge a pan-Cordillera identity and a political consciousness. And yung mga Ifugao, hindi lang sila talaga lumalaban para protektahan yung kanilang kalupaan, no? They were actually defending yung kanilang pamumuhay na nakasentro sa rice terraces at sa kanilang spiritual practices. Kasama na rito yung Bulol tradition.
Tama.
So, nung natapos yung Marcos administration at ginawa na yung proseso ng pag-restore ng democracy, pag-draft ng bagong konstitusyon, umalagwa yung indigenous rights advocacy. In fact, sa 1987 Constitution, nagkaroon ng pagkilala sa ancestral domain rights ng mga indigenous peoples na hindi kapareho, halimbawa, ng pag-recognize ng land ownership sa lowland population. Kasi hindi nag-a-apply sa kanila yon, di ba? I think very popular yung isang sinabi ni Macling Dulag, yung leader ng resistance na namatay, leader ng resistance sa Chico Dam na inassassinate, pinatay noong I think 1975. Sabi niya, and I'm paraphrasing, pero sabi niya, how can you own land when it's been there before you, before your parents, before your grandparents, before your ancestors, di ba? Parang nauna yan sa atin and it will outlive us. So how can you say you own it, di ba? And I think that's a very good, very profound, na reflection ng worldview nila as regards their physical environment. And by 1997, naipasa yung Indigenous Peoples Rights Act or IPRA, na nag-provide ng legal framework for cultural preservation. At ito ay landmark na piece of legislation. Very advanced to. I think tayo ang una sa buong Southeast Asia. And in fact, when the United Nations wrote the United Nations Declaration for the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, IPRA ay isa sa mga naging basihan.
Pero iba na rin yung naging impact ng modernization as it already transformed Ifugao society. Yung mga kabataan or young people were moving to cities for education and even work. And yung conversion, religious conversions like Christians later increased. And some sources say the last traditional Bulol consecration rite was held in the 1960s pa. Although disputed yung idea na ito.
And of course, tourism exploded in the Cordilleras. Ano pa to I think it started around the 70s, 80s when the rice terraces were being promoted as like the eighth wonder of the world and so on. It's so beautiful. But now it became a major destination and with it came the demand for authentic tribal artifacts. And then later on, yung pagsikat din ng mga tattoos from the north,
Sa Kalinga.
Sa Kalinga, oo. So you can get authentic tattoos and you can also get bululs, as something to take home with you. So yung bulol hindi na lang siya guardians, kumbaga hindi na lang siya markers of spirituality. They also became commodities in this tourist economy.
Yeah. Nung huli kaming nag-travel, ito lang, nung umuwi ako sa Pilipinas, so umakyat kami sa north, we went to Sagada, we saw and we went to see the rice terraces. Tapos, umikot kami basically sa Cordilleras. Ang daming bulol, like sa mga restaurants halimbawa, guarding the doors, ganyan. So they're all over the place. And I'm sure they're like new, hindi yung mga antique. Pero yun nga, nagkaroon na rin ng ibang interpretations. 'Di ba? So ngayon nilalagay sila sa mga pinto ng mga businesses halimbawa kasi it's
Guardians,
supposed to be like a prosperity icon or spiritual guardian. So yeah, through all of these changes, 'di ba? Nandyan pa rin yung bulol at I think it still embodies unbroken connection between the community and their ancestors.
Interestingly, we saw that each historical era tried to redefine the bulol according to its own values. Like the Spaniards saw it as pagan idols that had to be destroyed or ignored. The Americans saw it as primitive art, exotic art to be collected. And then the modern state later on would see it as both cultural heritage to preserve and tourist attractions to promote. No? So in a way, enduring talaga yung bulol as an icon, kumbaga, of not just Northern Philippines, but Philippine society na rin, in general.
So today, the bulol exists in two completely different worlds. So in Ifugao communities, newly carved and consecrated figures continue to guard rice harvests. In international art markets, antique bulol sell for millions of pesos, 'di ba? Pinapackage siya o binebenta siya as primitive art.
Kasama na dyan yung authentication debate revealing this divide perfectly. Kasi para sa mga collectors and museum enthusiasts, authenticity means age, provenance, and that dark patina from generations of ritual use. Pero sa mga Ifugao, itong authenticity na to means spiritual activation. A new figure once properly consecrated with blood and blessed by a mumbaki. And it's fully authentic and powerful.
Meanwhile, an ancient figure removed from its granary and placed in a museum is actually considered spiritually dead. No? Empty vessel na lang yan. Tagtago na lang ulit yan. Kasi tinanggal na siya sa purpose niya eh. So, the very act of collecting deactivates what collectors prize the most. No? Yung what they believe is the spiritual power that created that patina in the first place. Akin, para sa akin, very funny. At the same time, it just goes to show how there's this disconnect between what we perceive as art and what we perceive as spiritually important or resonant to a group of people.
Major Western institutions like the Metropolitan Museum of Art, Seattle Art Museum, and the notorious British Museum hold bulol in their collections. And mostly, these are acquired during the colonial era. Or binili from dealers during economic hardship naman sa Cordilleras.
Ayan. At syempre, dahil malaki yung demand, it also created this forgery industry. So, carvers would bury new figures in mud or artificially treat them to simulate the age, no? And this shows how external market pressures distort local cultural production, creating this so-called economy based on copying or mimicking the past for outside consumption.
Yeah, and although we mentioned kanina na kapag tinanggal mo yung bulol from where it should be, it kind of spiritually deactivates it. But there's still a growing movement for repatriation and new models of cultural stewardship. Like, for example, the Ifugao Community Heritage Gallery, led by the Ifugao people themselves, provides a venue for locals to manage their own heritage and to tell their own stories.
So, contemporary Ifugao carvers continue creating bulol, both for ritual use and for the art market na din. Yung iba, tinatawag siya, or they consider this as a form of cultural commodification. Yung iba naman, they argue that hindi naman kasi static ang kultura. So, they argue that these evolutions in terms of its perceived purpose ay isang paraan to sustain the carving tradition. And of course, secondarily, income na rin siya sa mga katutubong iskultor. Climate change threatens the rice terraces themselves and potentially undermining the agricultural system that the bulol were conceived to protect. Hindi biro itong challenge na to, ano. So, kumbaga, this makes cultural preservation and adaptation even more urgent.
And well, despite everything, the bulol endures as a powerful symbol of Ifugao resilience. No? A tradition that survived colonialism, modernization, and even commodification while maintaining its essential spiritual core.
So that's it for our episode on the bulul of the Ifugao, which shows us how a simple wooden carving can embody an entire worldview where art, faith, and survival are inseparable, and where the boundary between the living and the ancestors remain fluid and vital.
Next week, we're exploring another object that literally supported Filipino life for a century. And it's something that appears in our earliest creation myths and woven into the very fabric of Filipino identity. Well, quite literally.
Yes, so abangan nyo yan. Maraming salamat sa pakikinig. Don't forget to check out our social media accounts. And of course, you can visit our website to look at our episodes and our past seasons, podcast.org. And as always, have a good day.